Commissioner Polson, we're just testing the audio. Can you hear us? And we can't hear you. I think you're muted still. I just want to make sure.
Now you can probably hear me.
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
Okay.
thank
Yeah,
you.
I was muted
Happens. Thank you.
every time I use this.
All right, we're going to mute until we get the meeting started. Thank you.
Okay.
My blood pressure 119/76.
Well, got out of the office. What are you gonna do? Yeah, there's only 3 commissioners there right at the moment. So that need me actually for a quorum.
We ready? this, yeah.
Good, wonderful. Welcome to the April 1st, 2026 Talbot Heights Planning Commission work session. We've got quite a bit on the agenda this evening. First off in the work session is the review of the session agenda, which we are going to be going through project CUP-26-004 and project CUP-26-005 consent agenda. And also, I believe there's going to be a few updates on the old mill, which is CUP-25-005, and some housekeeping items to start off with. So, Jim, do you mind starting off with some of the housekeeping
Yeah.
items?
Thanks. So a couple announcements. I'm gonna pass this paper around. Sorry, the font is really small, so bust out your readers, but this is just our contact information for you all. So just make sure your address and your email is correct. And we should have your email because we email you every meeting. And then if you want to include your cell number on there, just in case we have to text you or whatever, we can do that. So I'll pass this around. And then with that, we have two of our commissioners that are nearing the end of their term here.
Many.
So yeah, Commissioner Mills
That's a
and
big one.
Commissioner Anderson, at the end of June will have served 2 terms. So just this week, we posted on the city's website an announcement for people to apply to become a planning commissioner. So I encourage you all to share that with any colleagues, neighbors, friends that you feel would serve the city well and represent the citizenry. And then I emailed you all a link to that, so you can forward that to whoever may be interested. There are some qualifying criteria. You have to live in the city. And then it's preferred that you have experience in real estate planning, finance, things that would generally coincide with what the planning commission does here. Not required, but it's nice to have expertise from a broad array of disciplines. And then there are a number of trainings that are coming up with the APA Utah League of Cities and Towns, Utah Land Use Institute. Generally, after the legislative session, they hold webinars with just updates of what was discussed, things that passed. So if you're interested, I can forward you links to those. They're generally about an hour long. I think I'll have to look at my email, but I think there's some coming up in the next month. So if you're interested, I'll pass those along. They don't cost anything, and they do record them, I believe, so you could go back and watch them if you're unavailable to join live.
And Jim, we
Yes.
should have 2 hours a year of that kind of training, is that right?
Yeah, so actually 3.
Three.
And that's something that we're gonna dive into more of, like formal trainings with the planning commission. So the state requires that planning commissioners have at least 3 hours annually of training on specific topics. If you attend at least, I think it's 9 meetings in a year, that counts towards 1 hour, and then you have 2 hours to make up aside from that. And then this year they added a new requirement for training in that specific area. I can't remember exactly what it is though.
Is it
Do
the
you
public
remember?
meetings training?
It may be that.
Yeah, I believe that's the required certificate.
Yeah,
Public meetings.
so we'll keep you guys up to date with those items. And then also just FYI, any new commissioners that join us can't vote in a meeting until they've had their training completed. So we'll coordinate with those people before. And so anyway, I think that's all I had for you guys. So
Jim, do you want us to let you know individually that we'd like to know about the meetings
Yeah,
and
you
stuff
can-
coming up, or you want to just send it out to all of
I
them?
can just send it to everybody.
Yeah, I think
If you
that'd
could,
be
that'd be
great.
great.
Yeah, I'll do that probably tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And moving forward, project CUP-26-004.
Yeah, let me share my screen here really fast. There you go. Okay, so this is gonna be for a second driveway exception. And this is gonna be located at 1720 East, 6670 South. As some background, so this is conditional use approval for a second driveway exception. Applicant is Jared Park. We recommend to approve this with conditions, then here's a view of the property. He is requesting this approval for a second driveway because he'll be building an internal accessory dwelling unit, which requires an additional parking spot. The presence of mature trees on his property would make the permitted circular driveway approach, that would, give him a second driveway approach, that's just impractical for their property. They'd have to remove some trees. So instead he's proposed adding a second driveway, that's not connected to his existing driveway to better access the proposed ADU, while maintaining his existing landscaping. The driveway code does state single family dwelling shall be permitted only when access unless a circular driveway approach is utilized. But then later in the chapter, it says in cases where unusual topographical, aesthetic, or other exceptional conditions or circumstances exist, variations or exceptions to the requirements may be approved by city council after recommendation from planning commission, assuming it's not detrimental to public safety or welfare. So here's the proposed second driveway location from aerial, zoomed in. And then I showed, this is an image of his proposed addition. So you can see in red, that's the additions to his home. So there's just one regular addition. He's also doing an addition to his garage, and then the ADU addition is going to be kind of on that western property. So all of that will be taking place in a separate building permit, and he'll be, will of course require the regular ADU license and everything. So this application is just for his second driveway approach. Again, that's shown at the very top of the screen right there. I contacted our public works department just to see what their comments would be. They just said as long as the applicant can demonstrate that a clear sight distance triangle out of the proposed driveway entrance is maintained, they're fine with it. They just want to make sure that all landscaping is trimmed to a maximum height of 3 feet or 15 feet back from the driveway. So there's a picture for that.
Oh, that's what that triangle is that clear distance triangle?
Yes, yes, it's kind of like a clear.
Because I know that when I drove by and looked at it, of course, there's a church there. So at times when church is going on, that could be the time where it could be a little busier. And I was just curious what is the setback requirement from that fence?
For the driveway?
Yeah.
5 feet, I believe, and they're proposing 6 feet away from the driveway, or from the fence, excuse me. So yeah, it should meet the required setbacks for a driveway, besides the fact that it's just a second driveway.
And I mean, where the big trees stay? I was just curious. I mean, I hate to
So
see
it might
big
be
trees
worth,
down.
it might be worth asking the applicant today, because that is the one thing I realized afterwards. We don't know what landscaping is or isn't going. He did say in his narrative though that they'll be making sure that clear view is maintained, but I know our engineer just was like, yes, we want to make sure that that is actually the case.
Okay.
That. Again, here's just approximately where the driveway would go in red, and then yellow shows approximately where the property line is located. So staff findings, just, we were looking at the width, between their existing driveway and the proposed driveway. So it looks like the lot would have sufficient width to accommodate a circular driveway, because it has the minimum 35 feet between access points. So, this design wouldn't change where an egress would be if they had chosen to do the already permitted circular driveway approach. But this would reduce the unnecessary costs, removal of existing landscape, and disruption to the site. Then again, city council can grant exceptions to this driveway standard under all of your recommendation. And so based on their narrative and site plan, it seems like the request does demonstrate the presence of an aesthetic and site-related constraints that may justify the consideration of an exception.
So I have a really maybe silly question. Do we have a definition of what is a driveway? Like, does it have to be so many feet or so long width?
I don't know if I don't know.
It would just be a anything that has vehicle access with a curb cut.
It'd have to be
that's all
paved.
it-
It has to
in
be
this context,
paved
it would-
too.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if we had requirements that it needed to be a certain size.
Yeah. I know it has to be like a certain width and everything too. So as part of our recommend, or conditions that we'd recommend, it would include making sure that they're reaching out. They would have to do a right-of-way permit with the Public Works Department for that new curb cut. So yeah, some of our other conditions would be they need to conform with the approved site plan and materials submitted today. That the second driveway approach would not be constructed until an ADU license application has been approved, just because we don't want it just floating out there if they don't get approved for the ADU. Again, that they'll get all permits, so they're already working on their building permit, but also any right-of-way permits prior to the construction of the driveway. Also that the driveway would comply with all other city standards for width, materials, drainage, access, which would be reviewed during that right-of-way permit, I believe. And then that they get a right-of-way permit that's reviewed by the city, and that this approval is specific to the site, and that the internal ADU and parking will also meet all of the ADU provisions inside of the code. So I guess based on that, that's why we would recommend approval. Let me know if you have any questions.
Did you guys do the calculation on this one for impermeable surface if we went with the circular versus just parking? Because
Yeah,
I feel like that maybe to our advantage that way to give them what they want instead of just going massive impermeable surface with a full circular.
yeah, that was part of his narrative as well. He's like, well, this way we'll have less concrete. It'll be more aesthetically pleasing. We didn't calculate the exact, I mean, I guess he's calculated the amount of square footage here. It is going to be a lot below I think they have a maximum of 50% coverage, lot coverage, and impermeable surface. We only measure for areas in the sensitive land overlay. And I don't think that this is one of those. So I think they're very,
Clear.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're very much in the clear for that.
I also am wondering if they trim the low branches, I don't, the triangle rule, I can't remember because I mean, people have trees and parkways and things like that. And we allow that and actually encourage trees. And I think our gut feel in Common Heights is we just cringe at anybody having to cut a tree down.
Yeah, that was my question,
So-
is that I was hoping the trees weren't coming down.
Yeah,
you
if
know,
there's a
so-
way to just trim low branches and especially if I'm imagining the owner, it's like, that would be kind of nice to be able to park underneath trees, a little
Yes, I
sun
think
protection.
the whole point of this application was reducing or eliminating the need to get rid of, I mean, they're very mature trees,
Very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, they
Yep,
are.
that's all I have.
My thought is if the circular driveway, in this case, makes no more sense than the two driveways, we had to consider amending the code from the lesson we learned here, which is if they were to tie those two driveways together, it would be no better for anyone, really. So the code itself, we ought to look at and say, why does it have to be circular? Why, in this case, you're just talking about a second curb access.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
goes to our ADU discussion that we've had a lot, that one of our solutions for ADUs is just to make sure they can accommodate off-street parking. So if it goes towards that, promoting ADUs in appropriate places, the biggest issue has been like trying to affect parking. So getting creative about parking, I love that.
Yeah, we've had 2 or 3 other calls actually this week, not related to this project, but just other people asking about driveways. And yeah, I mean, we have a process in place, but it's lengthy, so it's either, you eliminate it or.
Just a lot of overhead to evaluate this, just because they didn't tie those two things together, and we ought to eliminate overhead like that when we can. You say, all right, if it's okay, it's okay, let's make it okay.
Agreed.
Good point.
Any
So
other questions? I think this one's pretty straightforward.
I like straightforward.
So that's what you were going for. Wonderful. CUP 26-005.
So this is a CUP 26-005. This is a conditional use request for a convenience store, known as Highmark. The applicant is Sammy, can't say his last name, Benazari, I believe his last name is. Subject property is at 7825 South Highland Drive. The zoning district is neighborhood commercial, and staff does recommend approval with conditions. part of the request, well, the applicant is requesting the approval to operate a convenience store within the existing Cottonwood Creek Plaza. The hours of operation are from 9 AM to 9 PM, Monday through Sunday. And this is per the applicant's narrative. He's anticipating about 50 customers per day, 1 to 2 employees per shift. The convenience store, as stated in the narrative, would sell prepackaged foods and drinks, drink options for both on-site and takeaway consumption, limited grocery options such as milk, bread, egg, and similar staples. He did mention as well as he would provide a list or a request list for residents to add items, right, to stock in the store as well. Household sundries, that'd be just like detergent, toothpaste, toothbrushes, just knickknacks, stuff like that. And tobacco products, which would be limited under the general tobacco retailer's license, which the applicant applied for through Salt Lake Health Department and did receive approval for. Part of this proposal, there was no exterior, interior, or site changes, as the applicant will be using the same space the Beehive Blend CBD shop was, so they're not modifying that, they're just moving right into that empty space. Little context, the site is about 1.9 acres. There's a 24,000 square foot multi-tenant building on the site, which houses a mix of uses such as a gym, restaurants, personal care, professional offices, medical and therapy services. All the tenants share access and parking throughout the site. Again, this just shows confirming that the zoning is neighborhood commercial. The pictures to the right there are just straight views from Google, kind of showing the location of the proposed convenience store. This is the site plan that was provided by the applicant. The lease space is 1,280 square feet, with about 800 square feet of that as front of house or retail area, and the remaining being back of house, consisting of storage, office spaces, and restrooms. Upon reviews, staff did find that as proposed, the request did meet the standards outlined in city ordinances, including the conditional use process. Again, under as was originally proposed, staff does not anticipate the use to create any adverse impacts to public health, safety, or general welfare. And here I have included kind of the definition of convenience store. As it states, it's a retail establishment selling food or for on or off premise consumption and limited selections of groceries, sundries, etc. Again, this, as proposed by the applicant, that met that definition of that land use. Conditional uses are, per state statute, are entitled to approval unless reasonable conditions cannot be imposed to mitigate negative impacts. Again, going back onto the tobacco license, I guess. So the state offers 2 tobacco licenses. There's a general tobacco retailer license, which is typical just of your gas stations, convenience stores, right? Just your little displays behind the cash register where they're selling tobacco products. And then there's tobacco specialty shops, where this is the main purpose of that actual business is to sell tobacco products. And in addition to that, the tobacco sales exceed 30% of the total quarterly sales. More than 20% of the floor, shelving, or storage area consists of tobacco products. So those are some criteria where a business selling tobacco could fall into that specialty tobacco criteria.
Tobacco includes vape.
Includes e-cigarettes as well, yeah. So smokeless tobacco products, so nicotine products, etc.
What about THC and CBD?
So that's a separate license. So the state requires separate licensing to sell THC type products.
And Kratom?
And Kratom, that I'm unaware of. I know it's considered a supplemental type product. I know there's a lot of controversies about Kratom. I understand the concern there.
I would expect Kratom to be there.
Yeah,
That was-
as well as
It's also been outlawed though by the legislature.
intake gases as well.
Yeah, I saw the gases on there as well, so that.
Do you know what that lies under within?
So the gases, I didn't have a chance to look into the gases as far as if they're, restricted in the state of Utah. Or if they create it as well.
Within our code, do we have a difference between general tobacco retailer and tobacco specialty shop as far as uses go within convenience store or vape shop?
We don't, our ordinance only defines especially tobacco stores, and it just refers to the definition provided by the state of Utah. So. Yeah, there's
So from a use, there is one that is convenience store and specialty tobacco store as well.
Yeah. So the state does define those separately. Under our ordinance, we don't, we just define what a specialty tobacco store is. So the assumption is if it's not a specialty tobacco store, it's gonna be just a tobacco retailer, general retailer, like a gas station or something selling tobacco products. Now, following under that tobacco specialty shop, there are separation criteria set by the state where it can be within 600 feet of community spaces, schools, etc. In this case,
It's 1,000 feet, actually, right?
1,000, yeah, communities, 600 feet of residential areas.
Yeah.
So this particular location, they don't meet any of those standards. They have the little gym next door. There's
60
residential
feet
behind them. Yeah, there's
Montessori.
Montessori behind them. Yeah,
to the
so.
preschool and 600 feet to Brighton High School.
Yeah. And I did call and confirm with Salt Lake County. They did acquire that general tobacco retailer license. I think she did state they originally applied for the specialty and were denied, so.
They applied for and it was denied, you said?
Was they wouldn't give them a
For
specialty.
this special.
Okay.
So as far as tobacco products go, is that also any of the uses, so devices to utilize tobacco as well?
Yeah.
In their sales
Yeah,
ratios?
yeah, so that'd be included in both tobacco retail and tobacco specialty, if that makes sense. That.
Okay.
The general tobacco retail, they can sell the same products, they just can't sell as much. That's essentially the difference, right?
So how will you ever police if they do or don't exceed 35%?
And that's a good question. And so I did talk to the Salt Lake Health Department about, how is this enforced? And they just rely mainly on the municipalities to enforce these regulations because they're short-staffed. There's only one person for like 400 licenses, so.
Well, the state statute covers us on that too, because there is
Yeah.
some discretion for even the level of planning commission. It's basically implying if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
It's a, yeah, and so the state statute does say the municipality can, shutter the store due to
But
violation.
to do that, the municipality would also have to have a pretty good accounting of their sales, which I don't presume we will have.
So this was one of three options, right? So it's 25% total quarterly sales, 20% of floor area, display area or storage, right? So if you go into the store and half of it's all tobacco products, right? At that point, you can make that determination. This is more of a specialty tobacco store than a convenience store per se in this situation.
What about the advertising, the exterior advertising on the outside?
That I'm not overly familiar with that. I don't know if that, the state might have provisions, unfortunately, I didn't have time to look into that. I know the federal government has regulations on tobacco.
I don't think you can list
advertising.
out that you're selling tobacco. I mean, like cigarettes and cigars, which is what's on the sign right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I saw that on the sign, so I'm not sure. I know like, I'll see like Zyn products and stuff displayed. Those are nicotine products, but I'm not sure they fall into the same category as tobacco
I
products.
think the state classified them as such, like not the most previous, but the 2 legislative sessions ago, I think they were classified.
Is the sign currently there? Was that the one that was approved under our sign ordinance, or is that the temporary sign?
That's a
temporary
temporary
sign.
sign.
Have they submitted for signage for?
No.
So it sounds like they had the intent to, and their business model to be tobacco specialty shop and are now moving forward with tobacco retailers. So from the standpoint of questions that we have, is the applicant going to be here this evening?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll get that a little more here in a second too.
Wonderful.
Let me just kind of get the rest of this beef here and then
Perfect.
conversation. So as far as parking goes, per the ITE standards, park the entire site, including the convenience store, 92 stalls are required. The site has 115, so they do meet that requirement. So staff didn't find any issues as far as parking, circulation, and access. Noticing public comments were sent, for the public opinion were sent out 10 days prior to this meeting. We did not receive any comments until last night. I actually talked to the applicant. I passed that comment to you guys earlier before the beginning of this meeting. I did speak with Jessica for a bit regarding, what they're proposing, what the city can do as far as mitigating those and addressing her concerns. Her concerns are very similar to what the chair brought up with the pictures he, provided with staff earlier, which I'm sharing here, part of this presentation is what you're seeing displayed here, this is the interior of the shop. So there's a combination, obviously, of these are cigarette papers, wrapping papers for cigarettes. There's more kratom, right? So that the supplement stuff, again, you're seeing CBD products here, more kratom. This is the gas stuff, the nitrous oxide essentially on the right there. Like what they refer to it as whippets. It's interesting.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Again, here's.
Not good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said good stuff.
No, I was saying, I don't know, I don't even know what that is, and so,
We're just not that cool.
no, I guess not.
So,
That's pretty much established.
you know, it's good. Again, so here's the picture here, kind of showing their tobacco display on the back wall there, which would be something you'd be more consistent with a convenience store, right? It's a small display of tobacco products back in the store. Kind of what they're proposing here is, you know, looks more and resembles more of what you'd find in a tobacco specialty shop. Now, I did talk to the applicant twice today regarding this, and I did reach out to him the day before after I spoke with Jessica, you know, addressing these concerns as, you know, was proposed as a convenience store, so there's a certain anticipation or certain expectations of what that convenience store would look like, right? So I did ask him, you know, would he be willing to, you know, reduce the amount of display area he has for tobacco sales, and he's more willing to do so. He says, I'll work with the city to, you know, reduce tobacco, whatever brings him in compliance with city ordinance. Now, he did mention, you know, I did ask about the glass display cases, how things are displayed. I said, you know, that's not something you typically find in a gas station. He says, well, his employees set that up, but he's more than likely willing to remove those or whatever to address the city's concerns. So he is willing to reduce the amount of tobacco display, but he is not willing to remove the tobacco component from the sales from the convenience store. So
I'm curious, following up on Commissioner Shelton's comment, how do we monitor their compliance with any of these expectations? I think it'd be easy to get in and then have it be way different after.
yeah, and again, obviously through the health department for complaints, it's all complaint based. Again, it would be complaint based on our part unless we actively monitor the store quarterly.
So residents, people in the area, if they see a problem, they could initiate some kind of
I
review.
mean, this is
Yeah.
similar to anything that's not within ordinance, right? I mean, that you report it and then it's looked
Just-
into.
Right.
One of the concepts I believe that was mentioned was 35% of sales revenue. Is it possible, should we find that desirable to monitor that through the sales tax reporting?
And that, I was gonna talk to Scott about that, you know, do we actually see, when we get sales tax reporting here, does it distinguish between tobacco sales, location
Yeah.
or not? Or is that something we reach out to the business provider, or
Sure.
make that a condition of approval that quarterly they report their sales to the city to ensure they're not exceeding that 35%?
It could become pretty labor intensive for the
Yeah.
city.
Am I right in thinking that they are going to have to fill 80% of that space with non-tobacco?
That's correct.
With the glass cases in place, or with laundry detergent under a glass.
Yeah, typically you don't see those displays in convenience stores. Again, the applicant said he's willing to work with the city to, you know, address these concerns. I know he did, I asked him if those display cases were left from the previous tenant, said no, he brought those in. So, again, yeah, like I said. When it comes to, you know, looking at what your expectations are for a convenience store, you know, isn't quite really fitting that expectation. Again, the store's not fully populated. There's not, you know, I've said he is working on bringing in more, you know, chips, sodas, packaged goods and stuff, you know, to fill the store up. I'm not sure how that's gonna look. He says he'll bring in more shelving. I'm not sure that, you know, accommodates the glass display cases. I'm not sure what that's gonna look like with food and plastic, you know, again, I guess the applicant, you can ask him those questions as well.
Does this applicant have other stores?
No,
He does have one, he does have another store. It's called Salt City Cigars over by Dan's,
okay.
which is a specialty tobacco store.
Under this brand, Highmark just got a business license in February.
I'm sorry, well,
So
Highmark
City
just got a
Cigars-
business license in February with the state of Utah.
do they?
Okay, and that's in just our regular commercial district, not
That's
neighborhood
in the
commercial.
CR, yeah, that's in the CR. I didn't know that until I called the county and she's like, we own 2 businesses. So. Did, that being said, staff did, based on the applicant's original proposal, that staff does recommend approval based on these following recommendations. Some of the recommendations are because initially when I did speak with the applicant, I did have some concerns that maybe he was leaning more towards specialty tobacco as opposed to convenience store. So I did initially put these stipulations in here and I did go over with the applicant. I was fully transparent with him, saying, hey, you cannot have a specialty tobacco store here. You will not allow that. Because that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing a convenience store. So he was adamant about saying that. And then again, when we got kind of these public comments that came back, things look a little differently than what I was told initially. So.
Yeah. No, I think some really good questions we can have for the applicant are going to pertain to what is going to be different about this store versus Salt City cigars. I think that's going to be an important question. I mean, even just seeing an illegal substance in here, I just pulled up and it is, let's see here. It is Utah code and it's criminal code title 76. And that specific substance that I have in there, in that picture that I took earlier today is illegal effective 5/7/2025. So I think that there's some gray areas that we have here. I know there's been a lot of legislation as well on kratom. Sitting on the committee Health in the Heights as well here, there's a big push away from kratom. It's basically an opioid. So I think there's a lot of these gray areas that we're finding in these specialty tobacco shops that I think we need to really observe. And I think to Commissioner Shelton's point as well is who's auditing it? How much time are we spending from a compliance standpoint to find the audit and to be able to actually dig into the accounting of these and the tax accounting that we're seeing as well. So it's really hard to have projects like this that, look like a duck, sound like a duck. We've got to be careful.
In regards to the CBD here, that these gummies that are shown on the top shelf there, I did ask him if he had a license for that location to sell the CBD, and he said he did, but again,
That's actually a THC product,
this
that specific one.
just really like,
So THC and CBD are not
well, it's
the same thing.
well, it's a hemp derived product,
Right.
so it doesn't have the, I guess,
THC is
the
the
high
psychoactive.
factor.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Correct.
it's like a Delta 9 variant. I'm not really that familiar
Double
with it.
THC. Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't get you, I guess, high like cannabis does. I'm not
Well,
sure.
THC is what gets you high.
Right, but this is, if it has a less than 3% or something, he still requires less. There's tons of gray area. I'm not here to argue about.
Which I believe most of those are in specialty shops.
Yeah.
Specialty tobacco
Yeah,
shops.
and then speaking of like the Salt Lake County, and I asked about, how, as far as enforcement, what do they do? And they say essentially all they have bandwidth to do is do the 2 underage sales stings for each business a year. That's about all they do. They say they don't measure inventory, they don't log inventory, they just kind of go in there and make sure they're not selling to minors. That's about the extent of it.
Can I ask it?
Twice a
Can
year.
we go back to and look at the definition that you showed of the code for convenience store? Maybe go right there. Where does it say that tobacco's okay?
So it just in general, like you would see,
Why do we define some things but not?
right, because it's a incidental use, right? It's not the primary use. So essentially, if it wasn't, if it's, I guess, because it's not defined, it's not permitted in this case, right? Then all the convenience stores would be operating.
Right, well,
Right.
but it's just curious that we don't list it as being okay.
Unless it's.
A sundry, I
Yeah.
guess that's a
Yeah.
definition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I
It
guess
seems like
that could be
they're
too.
selling there's nothing in there other than, 20 Red Bulls and 20 Cokes that say that there's any semblance of a convenience store plan for this spot. In glassed in cases in a U shape all the way around the outside.
Does not
Illegal
give the
substances
appearance of a.
And
of
gray
a
area
convenience
substances,
store.
like literally every gray area substance that's available that's adjacent. I mean, this is the Brighton High School smoke shop.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a huge liability for the city. Do we have, under the application that they put in for Salt City? Do we have details about that application and as far as what we defined that use in their
I
application?
tried to find the application, I could not find an application, so I wasn't sure if it was just under the, over the counter business license, how that was done. But the business license itself is under tobacco outlet. So, yeah, I tried to find
We
it.
don't have a business license on that.
There is a business license.
There is, but it's
Yeah.
all under tobacco.
It's under tobacco outlet, it's defined as tobacco outlet. So, but I didn't find like an actual land use application, so my assumption is maybe it's determined as a permitted use and. Just went through the licensing process is all that was required.
From a land use standpoint, what I'm seeing here is there's a lot of things that are going to be very difficult for us to find a compliance within, especially when it comes to sales volume and the taxes and the tax implications of this. Condition wise or denial of this, I mean, this is a conditional use permit.
Mhm.
What does that look like within this space? Because right now it's not passing the sniff test as the use that they're proposing. And I believe their intended use was already denied by the state. So from a land use standpoint, what would our role be within this to ensure that we're either upholding compliance or denying this?
And then that's a good question, like being that there's not really, the store isn't fully put together, right? It's just kind of. Obviously, this is an assumption that it's gonna be a specialty tobacco shop, right? Looks like one, again, you'll have to justify it saying like, this does not meet the definition for, the thing is, the narrative for the land use meets the criteria for, it says we're doing, packaged foods, groceries, sundries, stuff like that, and tobacco products. As the application was submitted, it does meet the definition of a convenience store, but as shown through pictures or through observation, it obviously doesn't appear to meet that standard. I'm not sure really how to approach that from a denial approach, I guess, denying the application based off.
Are we able to ask for an inventory list and or pro forma, better understanding to understand the overall business operations of this?
Yeah, I think that would be reasonable. So if you look at the bottom of that slide, based on the state code, just says a land use authority, which is you all, shall approve a conditional use if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate any detrimental impacts. So I think it's totally within our purview to say, you have to submit your sales quarterly, dividing out tobacco versus other products. You can only limit the display area of tobacco products or associated merchandise to this amount of space. I think really the state code says you kind of have to approve it, but you can establish very firm guardrails. And if they act outside of that, then you can come in and revoke the conditional use. But it's a little tricky with these because you can't preemptively assume they're going to violate the code when they haven't set up or began operating. There's other things that we could do to say, staff has to go inspect the business before they open to make sure that they're in compliance. It's a little tricky because it would suck a lot of staff time and resources to have to babysit and monitor one business to make sure they're compliant. So I think there's a lot of different avenues that we can pursue. Another option is to say, come back with a more detailed business plan with a floor plan, a layout, where merchandise will be located.
Can we ask for financials, a breakdown of sales by product or
Yeah,
general
just-
product?
Pro forma.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that probably after the fact. I don't know if we could require them to submit that as a public record. 'Cause it's
You would think
private
they'd probably
business.
have that. as part of their business plan.
If they have other stores or have a plan in place, that would
Yeah.
be. I guess an option.
Let me give you my take at it and tell me if you think this is off. The challenge here is that we've been asked if we will approve that as a convenience store.
Right.
That's the question in front of us. Will we approve that spot as a convenience store? The question that's not in front of us is their use actually a convenience store? So I don't know how you can say a convenience store there isn't allowed. And that's the question in front of us.
Yeah, good point.
The problem is that we would hope that someone would really confirm that it actually is a convenience store and meets that definition. But I don't think that's our question, unfortunately.
Well, I think it has to do with safety, community safety, in certain cases, especially if it is meeting use. So I think by putting some of those guardrails into place from a use calculation, so if the use really is below a certain amount on sales volume based on the land use of that space, we can put those guardrails on. I think the issue is, the staff, the complexity of the staff, but I feel like we can put those guardrails on.
Those guardrails are already on, I think. So the state has a definition which says if you do this, then you're not a convenience store, you're a specialty tobacco retailer. But as a land use question, can they put a convenience store there is what's in front of us, I think. And, there are a lot of arguments about whether that actually is a convenience store or a specialty tobacco retailer. But I don't think that's the question in front of us, unfortunately.
But as I guess Jim mentioned too, I don't think it'd be out of your purview to maybe continue it and ask him to provide a floor plan showing the location of products, the types of products being stocked, right? If that better answers your questions, I guess. I think that'd be a reasonable ask, I think.
Yeah, or limiting the display area and sales of tobacco products, because if you walk into a Maverick or a 7-Eleven, generally there's, a case with shelving with tobacco, but it's not wrapped around the whole store, right? So you could say, you're limited to a 7-foot by 7-foot display area for any legal tobacco products in the state of Utah. Outside of that, strictly your typical retail. And those are all things that we could actually go in and monitor if we needed to, where we pop in and just make sure they're not operating outside of that. But again, that's the future compliance isn't really what's on the table today. He's applied for a convenience store, demonstrated in the application that it would be up to the staff to then verify prior to issuing a business license that that's actually what's happening, and even after the fact, to make sure it's not, transitioning into some other use that's not permitted.
And ordinance enforcement would do that, right?
Yeah.
Presumably. I think it's fair to say to him, if our ordinance enforcement people pull in and more than 20% of this is tobacco related, this conditional use permit goes away just like that.
I'm gonna push back on this a little bit. That last statement, the use is not anticipated to create adverse impacts to the public health, safety, or general welfare. Not anticipated. We are anticipating, based on the information we have in front of us, that it will impact public health, safety, and general welfare. Our responsibility is to anticipate. So that's a statement there. So, and in addition, there's wide sway that the legislature has given us, that smell test, that's that is codified. Like if there is literally like an individual paragraph that allows us discretion, that if it appears that that their intent is this, we are justified in denying it. And I think if it were appealed, I think that would stand on appeal. There's virtually nothing in there that makes it look like a convenience store. And we have to go with the information that we have in front of us. And the information we have in front of us is that this is a smoke shop that was denied their application. And there's nothing that appears that they have modified this other than they checked a different box. So I would love any piece of evidence to show, other than they checked a different box to say that this is headed towards a convenience store. So, I mean, you're gonna put glassed in cases around the front. There's no, that is not consistent with any convenience store. So, I mean, if 6 refrigerated cases showed up and they had smoking products against the back, great, terrific. Any single piece of evidence, like one little piece of evidence, any category. I mean, we came up with a bunch of ideas for what would constitute evidence. I'm like, I'm great with any of that stuff. Let's give the applicant a chance to prove their case rather than just saying, oh, you won't give me this? Well, then I want this. You know, I feel 100% comfortable in denying this based on the information that we have right here in front of us today.
And I would like to add to that, because I think that specifically in regards to impacts to public health, safety, and general welfare, this was any other use, if this was, let's just say, a restaurant or a bar, and you're that close to a high school, a Montessori, and another daycare, there's a lot more on the line for something like this from a land use standpoint because of proximity. And if we have a day of something running out of compliance, that can be detrimental, incredibly detrimental. And I think that could create some safety concerns, with Brighton High School and, some of the impacts of this. There's a reason that a cigar shop is as far away from Brighton. You can drive to it, can't necessarily walk there. So all the kids, as they're developing their everything, it takes a lot more to get to that space. So I think with this, it's different because the flip side to this of definition really is detrimental to the community. And from a convenience store and understanding what the convenience store is, there's nothing that states tobacco. And right now, I mean, we're already seeing over 25% of the store and the platform within the store being tobacco products or other detrimental products. So my thought process with this is I think we ask for a floor plan. I think we ask for a pro forma, from a sales standpoint of tobacco related products, paraphernalia, all of those things, just so we can better understand what the business model is. We don't know what the business model is. And I'm sure there's some standards as far as business models that we can refer to as the staff, from what a convenience store is and what a specialty smoke shop is. And I'm sure that that's codified at the state level. And I think we just need to better understand that. But the mere fact that their original intent was to be a specialty, I think this would be a different situation. If they only applied for the tobacco license, or, what was the definition of the tobacco license? It was limited tobacco sales.
Yeah.
Limited or general tobacco retailer. If they had originally just applied for general tobacco retailer, I'd have a different thought process on this. But because they had originally applied for the tobacco specialty shop, they had the intent, and that was their business model when they signed a lease or, took over the sublease on this, and then they had to get pushed someplace else. So from a use standpoint, I truly believe that we should at least ask for more, continue this, and of course, have conversations with these guys to better understand their use and ensure that, we're not just, finding a gray area and then figure out what the codification is going to be behind this and look at our definitions. And, luckily, knock on wood, everything in neighborhood commercial is a conditional use, which is the first time that we've been grateful for that. So that is a good thing right now on that. But I really appreciate that. I think that if the cards were dealt in a little bit of a different way, that's how we're looking at the application, but we have material facts that we have a different lens on the application look as to what the original intent is. And, from an appeal standpoint, that stuff that's in there, I've seen lives be destroyed because of it, between kratom, THC, and nitrous oxide, which is an illegal substance. And that's a big issue. So I think that, at least continuation on this and making sure that he's providing, facts for us to better understand and then continue to better understand what the operations actually are going to be. And I think, from a staff standpoint, it might be worthwhile for us to figure out what maybe other communities or even the state does for compliance on this. Because of course the intent's the tobacco specialty shop, and that it doesn't sniff out well for me.
I certainly concur with the comments that have been made. I'm just curious, what facts do we have that would suggest that their intention is to violate the standards that have been set forth? 35% of revenue, 20% of space. I mean, aren't we kind of jumping to conclusions?
There's well over 20% of the wall space is covered with tobacco products, which is a violation by itself.
Yeah.
And we use
No,
pictures all the time.
It's not because they haven't moved in yet.
Well, they-
They haven't put inventory in yet.
We have photos and we use photo evidence all the time of projects that have not been completed.
Sure.
We make all sorts of decisions for something that's not completely built. But the photos we have right now are that what is there right now on display, not like stacked up in boxes, but on display, you couldn't cram that into 20% of wall space right now. It wouldn't fit. So I'm like, well, if you eliminated all that stuff and then left just the cigarette products on the back, yeah, that would be 20%. If you
But if-
eliminated that stuff and again, we don't want to tell them how to do this, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you eliminated the glass cases and just left the retail spot at the back, and then you put in, you're selling bread, milk and eggs and cheese like a normal convenience store, great. That looks like a convenience store. to
But
me.
haven't they attested to us that they're going to meet these standards?
Well-
Haven't they stated that by
Yeah.
applying for the application?
The photo evidence disagrees with that.
Doesn't mean that it's not gonna change between now and opening.
And that's why, giving them a chance to, I love the chair's attitude that we give them a chance to
Yeah,
demonstrate some piece of
I
evidence.
do too.
Yeah, I think once again, I think a convenience store there, it fits neighborhood commercial. I think that's a beautiful use for that space.
Yeah.
There's enough apartments there that the walkability of having a convenience store would make a lot of sense, getting exactly what the definition of a convenience store is, to be able to use that, so.
I think this is the trick here. The trick hangs on the word use.
Yeah.
So the word use relates to their application. Their use is something we just said is appropriate there.
Absolutely.
So we're approving that use. What they're currently using it to do is a question outside of the use they applied to us for. And that's what makes it tricky, because you say, is our role to say, do they use it the way that the use we approved said they would? I don't know that we can do that. To say, we don't think you're gonna use this the way the use we approved said, but we do say, if you don't use it the way that we approve the use, then you lose your conditional use.
Absolutely.
So.
Can we make
so-
that as a condition? We can't say one violation and the conditional use is revoked?
Yeah, so under number 5 there is essentially says if
I think to even add to this, if I were to, let's just say I'm renting out that space right now. And I say I'm going to use that as a massage studio. And I'm gonna put together a floor plan for the massage studio, but I make sure that I have a shower and bathroom in each of my massage studio spaces and a kitchen. And then it's like, well, why do you need a kitchen? And then we just get more information about it. And then it's like, well, no, this is actually now a multifamily situation and not a massage studio. And, I think from a use standpoint, I think that that's something that we as the land authority in this space are able to maintain within is we need to better understand a floor plan of the space to then appropriately designate the use. And I think that's something that we can work through here. And I think asking for that floor plan, and in certain cases, I think when we're going through conditional uses, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, can we ask for, financial data or pro formas that are associated with the use to better understand that?
I think so, because it's undefined anywhere in the state of Utah. I mean, they're just, this challenge of the convenience store definition being used as a loophole. And that there's the fact that it's undefined, let's provide a pathway for them to just show us. But there's not some playbook for how you have them stepwise show us. And so, I mean, coming up with some conditions that help us feel more comfortable. This is a highly controversial product and the stuff that is being displayed right now, maybe they're just cleaning that stuff out. Great, let's see like a stepwise, let's give them a moment, just give them a beat and it's a sublease anyway. So I mean, that's the other thing too, is that, I mean, this space was designated for the CBD shop that lasted about a year, what was it, year and a half, probably. So I have no qualms about it, it's just saying, let's provide them a pathway through. But I don't feel like it has to be a thumbs up, thumbs down today.
I think that makes sense.
So we can get all the information and have this continued at a later date after they provide to us what we are asking for. Which I think we have every right to ask for a lot. And I'm all in favor of not encroaching on personal property. I like people to do what they want on their own property, but this is going to have an impact on the local community a lot as well. I think we need to stand up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it's a different story if the original intent did not get denied by the state. And, then, it doesn't matter what kind of inventory they have in there. It really is one of those things where, okay, this is going to be regulated by the state. This is going to be regulated by the city in certain cases. But I think ultimately, we don't want to waste that time for them. I mean, they don't either. Truly, this applicant doesn't want to waste their time. All the CapEx that goes into hiring, getting everybody into place, getting inventory ready for this. They don't want to be under the scrutiny that if they're looking to break it, I mean, it's going to be shut down immediately. And I think that that's a main concern. And I think that if they understand that it would be shut down immediately and they are completely stripped of it, they might not put that investment into it if their intent was to break that immediately.
So one question I have is, if this gets approved and they set up shop and they are violating our expectations, who is it again that's going to monitor that? Is it?
Well, I think
Code
it's like,
enforcement.
code enforcement, but someone has to
But-
let code enforcement doesn't proactively go to places. They are dependent on people reporting to them. Right, that there's.
Generally,
So the neighborhood.
But I think
we could still
the
monitor.
planning commission would report to them.
Sure.
We're expecting that you're gonna go do this.
It's 2 minutes away, so I mean, we could just hop in.
Yeah,
10 minutes
I live in
instead.
those apartments, so.
Before a business license is issued, is the space reviewed for adherence?
It could be, I mean, not generally. I mean, some land uses in the state require inspections, like a daycare, for example.
Right, oh, that would,
But,
yeah.
generally a retail store wouldn't require
It
an
doesn't.
inspection, but
Can we make that as a condition?
we could do that.
Yeah.
I would think that, we should look to add that as a condition, is that before business license is issued, a review of, I don't know how you state it.
Yeah,
but
it's
a
pretty
review
rare,
for
but
that.
sometime before this kind of case, we will add the condition like, oh, you need to provide some picture or pass the site inspection before we issue
Site-
a
I
license.
think we just have to say.
Yeah, we
site
just
inspection.
need, depend on what you guys want to add for the condition, but before we issue the license, I think we have the right to inspect or let the applicant provide all the information we needed.
I think this is a great example of trying to exercise good judgment in something that's has less of a definition in the code, and it's our responsibility as an entity when it's not defined in the code. And I would recommend, again, this is after Lucy and I are off, that this might be something from a housekeeping standpoint to just potentially propose some modification of the code to make this more clear, so that not if, but when, especially in these neighborhood commercial uses, that it's a little bit more clear for applicants to understand, here are the hoops that we're gonna make you jump through. But I don't think we have any choice in this case because it is undefined, that we're just acting in the public interest. And, I think it would be worth coming up with some code examples and,
Yeah, noted, staff moving forward, yeah.
Yeah.
These similar cases, right, we'll ask for a more distinct floor plan showing placements of shelving, product types, et cetera, right, just to ensure, we're getting what we're anticipating.
The detrimental effect of non-compliance to the intended use on this in proximity to 3 schools is very large. So I think that we're doing the right thing here to properly investigate and require additional information.
You got 1 minute for the old mill.
Can you do it?
Sure. So in your packets, we included some information for this month, April. A summary provided by the applicant of donations and contributions related to preservation. On the last page of the staff report, it showed the kind of the general schedule of information that we'll deliver. So last month was the flood damage statement, seismic analysis, seismic code, Salt Lake County inspection report. Next month, the applicant will provide records and history of maintenance, any rebuilding efforts and renovation considerations. Just so you're all aware, and I also sent this out to everyone, that the city did send out an RFQ for request for qualifications to do a structural integrity assessment of the old mill. So that application window closes early May, and then it's anticipated that we'll have the completed report by September 1 to then share with the planning commission. That will be an important step in just having a baseline understanding of what can even be done feasibly and what's realistic on the property. So not a whole lot new to report, just again, delivering information to you all. Once we near the end of the year, we'll probably create a binder with everything that you've seen to date so that you can have it to use as a resource to make a decision. So
Wonderful. Thank you. And then motion to adjourn?
I'll make that